Thanks for coming, everybody. Can you hear me? Welcome to the Child's Play panel with Alex Vincent. It's going to be out in just a second. Real quick, I just want to say, as a kid, my favorite Twilight Zone episode was the Living Doll episode with Talkie Tina. And when Child's Play came out, I was a kid when Child's Play came out. When that came out, that trailer was great because it showed me that the doll could actually come to life, and you actually see the doll come to life, as opposed to it just being implied. So it changed my whole perspective on horror, and I'm sure many other people too. So, you know, we owe that film a debt of gratitude, definitely. It being the 30th year, this should be a great panel. So without further ado, Mr. Andy Barkley himself and a special guest, Alex Vincent. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys.
So I only have a few questions because we want you guys to really, you know, ask Alex whatever's on your mind. So we'll get right into obviously, it's probably your first gig, the Child's Play movie.
Yeah. Sorry, I was distracted. I didn't know that I closed my eyes like that when I shot him. You guys picked a really weird second to freeze frame there. I think I looked up much more macho about half a second earlier than that. Anyways.
So walk us through, how did you get involved with Child's Play?
Auditioning. I was auditioning in New York City. I grew up in North Jersey. And I auditioned from 1987 until 1993, about that length of time. And I went out for a lot of things, like 3 or 4 times a week I would go into New York City after school and audition for things. Commercials at first and some television. I booked a character on a soap opera called As the World Turns. And I did a couple weeks on that show, and then I booked Child's Play. So they had to fly me out to do the Chucky movies, and then I think my character died in a fire on the soap opera. It's Kirk and Eleanor's kids, and I think we died in a fire, if I'm not mistaken. But so yeah, Child's Play was an audition that I got, and I got a call back for it, and I got a second call back for it, and then they flew me out to California to audition against 2 other kids. They flew us out like first class to audition, which had never happened in my career before or since. But it was interesting. It was me in a room. There were 2 other kids, supposedly. I didn't meet them, but it was different. It was a different kind of audition. For one thing, my mother was sitting in the room with me, which was very strange, even as a 5-6-year-old kid auditioning. You would go in by yourself. Your parents didn't really go in with you. I bet nowadays they do. But anyway, and we were doing a different scene that I hadn't auditioned previously. It was the scene where I say Aunt Maggie was a real bitch and got what she deserved. And when we went through the scene, we got up to that spot, I froze, and I said, I can't remember the lines. The truth was that I didn't want to say the word bitch in front of my mother. So I froze and I said, I don't remember the lines. I said, okay, that's all right, well, let's start over. And we started over, and when we got to that spot, I froze and I got up and I ran out of the room and I locked myself in the bathroom. And my mother came, and I could, you know, it's amazing how, I don't remember anything else about being 6 years old, but I remember that bathroom. I remember this white door and one of those slide locks, and I couldn't get it to lock, and I could just picture that for some reason. But my mother came in, she said, what's wrong? You know, I know you know all the lines. And I said, I don't want to say that word in front of you. So she went back out there, and she told them, he knows all the lines, he just didn't want to swear in front of me. And I had really fooled them into thinking that I didn't know the lines. So they said, well, this kid could act, he fooled us, so they gave me the part. Now I curse in front of my mother all the time.
So did you know what type, like what you were getting into? What type of movie this was?
Yeah. I was really, really bright when I was 6. I was significantly more intelligent at that age than I am now. That's partially intentional, but yeah, I kind of taught myself how to read with that script because I was just reading it over and over again from beginning to end. I had the entire script memorized, all my lines, all of everybody else's lines, to the point where if they changed the line a little bit, I'd be like, cut, that's not the line, that's not how it goes. And I had to say, no, it's called ad-libbing. I didn't learn that yet. And then they did revisions, and that was devastating to me because I had the whole script memorized. But yeah, I was very, very aware of what the film was and what my role was, and I had a really good acting coach, and I had people around me that explained it very, very well. So like, and not only did I know that it was a scary movie about a doll that comes to life and is trying to kill me and take over my soul. I mean, they're pretty deep concepts for a 6-year-old to start thinking about voodoo and possession. It was just too cool, though. The number one question of my life is if I was scared, and if I had nightmares, and if it was a scary experience for me. Besides the fact that I had the whole script memorized and I knew exactly what it was, I thought this was a multi-million-dollar electronic puppet that I was watching being operated in front of me. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I wanted to be a puppeteer after that, you know, for a little while. And you know, when the director said cut, the doll stopped trying to kill me. So I really had nothing to be afraid of. It was really just a fun experience. And it was a lot of work, but it didn't feel like work because it was fun. And when you're a kid, when you're 6 years old in this business, you don't have the insecurities that you do as an adult. So you don't really worry about your performance that much. You just do the best that you can, and you don't judge yourself. Like nowadays, it's a different story altogether. And that's kind of why I stopped acting. When I was like 13, you know, I don't know, are any of you from New Jersey? Have you ever lived in New Jersey? Nobody in a room full of Connecticut? Okay. Anyways, I had to drive from North Jersey, or be driven by my mother from North Jersey through the tunnel or over the bridge into New York City after school in traffic 3 or 4 times a week. So it got really, really tiring and just wasn't fun anymore. So I got into acting. It was my own idea because I thought it would be fun. Because I saw a girl that lived down the street from me on a commercial on TV. And I thought that would be fun, and then when I didn't think it would be fun anymore, I stopped. So,
in the first movie, you did get to work with some really cool people, especially to us horror fans. Chris Sarandon,
sure,
Brad Dourif, you know,
yeah.
some great names, horror names. What was it like working with them?
It was very fun. Brad, I didn't really get to work with because he recorded all of his voice stuff first. I worked with his voice for, you know, those 2 films, but he came in for like script readings and stuff, table reads in the beginning, and we went through some of the scenes, and he like was crawling on the floor like he was Chucky, and I had recently just seen pictures of that I didn't even knew existed, but yeah, him, I didn't really get to work with. Catherine Hicks I wasn't familiar with, but she had never played a mother in anything, which is funny because she went on to be a very well-known television mother from Seventh Heaven. But I was the first child, the first time she ever played a mother in a film, so she really took the time to get to know me and try to develop a relationship with me, and that was very cool. And Chris, I actually got to see Fright Night right before working with him, so I could know who he was. And that was the first horror film that I ever saw. First pair of boobs I think I ever saw, too. Neither here nor there. But yeah, so I was excited to meet Chris, though, and he was very nice. And I really liked Fright Night when I saw it, so I thought he was Jerry Dandridge, and I thought it was, you know, super cool, yeah.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I did hear that your sister actually played Chucky in one of the scenes.
Yep, that is true.
That's
when Aunt Maggie's sitting there reading the book and Chucky runs across the hallway, Ed Gale, who was a little person who was Chucky in some scenes, it was almost always the puppet, but when they would show the doll's full body from head to toe in motion, there was no way to use the puppet for that. So Ed Gale in the first one, and then a couple different actors in the subsequent sequels, played movable Chucky. But Ed Gale was not the right height for this particular shot and this scene. They even tried building a big oversized set where everything is bigger to make him look smaller, and that didn't work. And one day my dad brought us to the set instead of my mother, and my mother wasn't there to sign the slip, but my dad was, so he agreed to let my sister be Chucky for a day. My mother didn't appreciate it, but yeah, it's actually the first time ever that Chucky is moving in the entire franchise. Is my sister, actually. She's really running with it, actually. She just started a band called First Chucky. Never mind. Some of you will get that.
Ari Lehman's doing First Chase.
You don't explain it. Don't explain it. I love you, Ari. It's a joke.
So, when did you know that you were, obviously the first movie was successful. When did you know that you were going to make a sequel?
Very soon after. Yeah, very soon after the first one, we found out that we were going to make another one. And I knew that I was going to be #1 billing in it, which is a big deal for actors at any age. So there was a lot of responsibility on me for the second one. And I was starting to take myself a little more serious as an actor. It was probably the most serious I was as an actor was during that year. So yeah, I took it very seriously, and I tried very hard in that film to be good in it. I knew that Andy was pretty messed up at that point. So I really did play it like a damaged kid. I mean, I imagined what it would be like to live through that. And I still worked with the same acting coach who was very, very helpful with things like that. And then moving forward to Cult of Chucky, where I got to come back and play a character that I played 30 years prior, which is incredibly unusual and unique. I really, really played that up even more. Some criticism that I read of my performance in that film was, oh, he's so monotone. He's just so like dead inside. It's like, that's exactly what I was going for. So thank you, I appreciate that. No, because really it is like, if you had lived through Chucky in your childhood, you'd be severely messed up. I think he's a guy who's trying to put his past behind him, but it's impossible. I think he's tried and failed so many times. So
you kind of touched upon it already, but there was 23 years between Child's Play 2 and Curse of Chucky, and you made, and spoiler alert if no one's seen it yet, sorry, but Alex shows up at the end as Andy. It's a great cameo. It's kind of a surprise. So I mean, how did that? Obviously you were taking time off, but how did that really come about? How did you get involved in that?
Well, I'm still friends with Don Mancini, who was the director of the last couple, writer and director of all of them. He started directing from, I guess, Seed of Chucky on, but yeah, he and I were just close, social media. We were able to get back in touch in like 2000 something, and he knew very much that I would love to be a part of it if it made sense and was the right time for my character to come back. So yeah, he said, I wrote something for you. I'm bringing Andy back. It's at the last scene of the film. I'm sending you the script. Please don't skip to the end. Read the whole thing. And I did, and yeah, I was thrilled to do that. I mean, it was very, very fun. And a lot of people missed it because they put the film on Netflix, but all right, so my scene at the end of Curse of Chucky was supposed to be the last scene of the film. It wasn't supposed to be after the credits. But the little girl Alice in the film, she was supposed to die first in the film. The script has us killing her off early on, and then the studio wouldn't let us kill her. So they had to change things last minute and add that scene with Alice at the end of the film, which pushed my scene to after the credits. And then for some strange reason, they only put my scene on the unrated version. And then for an even more strange reason, they didn't put the unrated version on Netflix. So anyone who's seen the film on Netflix did not see my scene at all, which made them very lost for the beginning of Cult of Chucky. And despite the 4 years they had to reflect on that decision, they did the same thing to Christine in Cult of Chucky. Oh, well, that's a spoiler too, but stay till the end of Cult of Chucky on the unrated version.
Yes.
Sure. Hopefully everyone's seen it already, so I'm sure we can talk about it. But you had a pretty significant role in Cult of Chucky.
Yeah.
So did you kind of catch the acting bug again? Or?
No. No. Yes. I mean, yes and no. I enjoy acting. I always have. I hate auditioning. I would have continued acting if I didn't have to audition. But I was not that kind of star where you could be like, I'm not auditioning. So, yeah, no, I really enjoyed working on that film a lot. It was freezing cold. It was in Winnipeg in the middle of the winter, like 40 degrees below zero cold, literally that cold. Like, it was unbelievable. You get frostbite in like 5 minutes, and I had a couple outside scenes. And, it was tough, but it was very fun. Very fun, yeah.
All right, well, I think, we could probably open it up to some questions.
Okay.
In the audience.
Do you guys have any?
You can raise your hand if one.
Go ahead.
So a lot of times with like child actors, we hear as they get older. Thank you. A lot of times with like child actors, we hear as they get older, like maybe they experience different things because of the fact that they were like in the limelight or whatever. Was
Yeah.
there anything either like positive or negative in the after effect of doing this? Like obviously positive because everybody usually knows.
Yeah, I mean the positive is that I was very lucky to be in a horror film for one thing, which has such dedicated, loyal fans. If I were in a drama at that age, I wouldn't be at a convention right now because there's no drama con. But so yeah, very fortunate for that reason. I was not really in the limelight. I lived in New Jersey. I made a movie that some people liked, but I wasn't. There was no paparazzi in my life. There was no. I never moved to LA. I never decided to move out there and change my life and be an actor. And I didn't make like a ton of money off that film. It's not like the horror stories that you hear of these child actors that their families make millions of dollars from their career, and then their family, spends it all, and then they get into a custody or a civil lawsuit against their family, and then they get way too much money when they're way too young to handle that much money, and they ruin their lives. None of that was really the case for me. I had I'm only famous to you guys, like, I really am though. I could go anywhere in my life and not have to answer any questions about. I don't get recognized. I don't get and at that age, the difference in how you look from 6, 8 years old to 12 years old is really drastic. So, I was recognized when I was about 7, 8, 9 years old, and then that was it. And then nobody recognized me anymore. I didn't have to talk about it, and I just, was a regular kid. I started waiting tables when I was 14, before I was legally even allowed to in a pizza place. And I waited tables for 17 years. I only stopped a few years ago. I opened up a recording studio. I went to school for audio, and I opened up a studio down in Clearwater, Florida for the past 4 years, and it's been good. We've worked with over 250 artists. We have really great reviews online. It's fun. It's what I enjoy doing. And I write. I've written many, many screenplays, and I've sold a couple, and we shot one, and I have a couple others that I'm hoping to get made at some point. Yeah, and I do hope to do more acting. I just, it's just tough. you have to be in the gym all the time. You got to be in like great shape. All that, like I don't want to do that. That's horrible. It's horrible.
None of us do.
I'm an Italian from North Jersey. I can't, I can't eat kale.
Any other, right here?
So since you were in, when you were so young, did you watch yourself in the movie? Like
Yes.
directly after? Like were you
Yeah.
allowed, like your mom allowed you to watch the movie?
Yeah.
Did you end up becoming like a horror movie fan? Like did you watch other horror movies?
Well, that's funny, but no, actually.
Really?
Yeah, all right, so yes, to answer the first part of your question, I did go to the premieres. The truth is, I was able to watch any movie I ever wanted because of this in my life. My mother could not make a compelling enough argument to me on why I could not watch anything. So yeah, I was pretty much allowed to watch what I want. And I enjoy horror films. I just, I'm not the biggest, I like comedies. I'm a really big comedy fan and good dramatic acting and these, Showtime, HBO type of series. Like those have been like my favorite. And television and with films, it's mostly comedy. I do like horror movies. I've met everybody in every horror film ever because I've been doing conventions for 15 years. But in most cases, I have not seen their films. Like, so I've seen a little bit of this and that, and I do like some scary movies, like a film like The Strangers. I like The Strangers because that's real and could happen.
Right.
People with masks or a bag on their head outside your window, that could happen. The sci-fi element of horror films, I could enjoy it for what it is, but I think, even though most of you don't admit it, I think horror movies do scare you, and that's why you like it. I'm not scared. I love horror. I've seen everything. You are scared, and that's why you like it. But I think that the world is scary enough already. So I kind of, I guess though there is that, the thrill of being scared without the consequence of anything bad happening to you. I get it, and all the people in my life are big horror fans, and when I saw a horror movie recently that I liked, that Quiet Place. I thought that was really good. Yeah, I like some horror, but I'm not a huge horror fan. Yes.
How does it make you feel, or what are your thoughts did you think that this would still, at this time, 2018, that people would be watching
No
it
way.
again? Or even
No way.
younger kids watching this?
No.
And where you're at this point, because
Yeah.
you're big to us. Like, this is amazing having you here.
Well, thank you. It's amazing that you're here to me too, also. No, I never thought 30 years later Chucky would still be such a huge part of my life. I didn't think that. I did know that it wasn't going away in that sense. Like I knew it would always be part of my life, but I didn't know that I would have been in 5 countries and 38 states, meeting people for 15 years. I never would have guessed that. I never would have guessed that I would have come back into the film and got to play this character again. When I shot Curse of Chucky, it was just one day in Canada, and it all happened really fast that it was kind of like, wow, that's amazing. I can't even believe that happened. Was that real? And then when I went and made Cult, it was even more surreal. It was like, now I'm actually here for weeks making a Chucky film, like in the freezing cold, like I was in 1987. Yeah, definitely would not have expected that.
Anyone else have any questions for Alex? Over here.
And also, I'm going to be at my table till 7, so if you don't ask me a question here, you're welcome to come by and ask me there too.
Just a quick one. At all the movies you've done involving Chucky, what's your favorite line you've ever said?
What's my favorite line I ever said? Well, from the first one, this is the end, friend. That was really the big kind of exclamation point on my character in that film. So, yeah, that was really fun. The delivery of it too. I remember Tom Holland, the director, was very, very specific. So the way I said it, this is the end, friend. Like, that's just how he wanted it. I know, because I did it like 15 times until he was but he was very happy with it at the end. And then back in Cult of Chucky now, I had that scene where I ripped the gun out of his stomach, and in the script it says, you know, this is the end, friend. And I didn't want to say this is the end, friend. You know, that doesn't work as a 35-year-old. So you know, like, this is the end, friend, and that didn't feel right. None of it felt right, and I was thinking this was just such a big line for this character. It feels weird to say it again. So I went to Don immediately before shooting it, and I said, you know, I was thinking about this, like, what if I said this is the end, fucker, instead? And his eyes lit up. Yes, yes, that's right. So yeah, both versions of that. And that line in part 2 where I say, hey Kyle, you want to hear me say your name backwards? Yeah. And I turn around and say, Kyle? I wrote that line at 8 years old. That was my idea. I stole it from my music teacher.
Can you hear me? All right. I have one question before we go back to the audience questions. So, what do you think of the comedic turn that the franchise took with Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky?
Yeah, I think it was smart. I think it was inevitable. You know, when I, it's not that I was bitter during those years that I wasn't in the Chucky films anymore, but I was a little bitter during those years that I wasn't in the Chucky films. No, I was in high school, you know, and Bride of Chucky came out, and it was a big deal, and they mentioned Hackensack. He's buried in Hackensack, and I went to Hackensack High School, and it was just kind of odd, like, having it be popular again and not having anything to do with it at all. So at the time I was like, well, it's a comedy, it's not the same, you know, but now that I've thought about it all in retrospect, it really was the best thing to do. You can't convincingly sell this killer doll and keep people afraid of it for 30 years. It always had a self-referential kind of element to it. Anyways, so I think just running with it, kind of the concept of let's make fun of ourselves before other people make fun of us. I think that really worked well for it. That being said, I'm really happy that it went back to horror. I mean, Chucky is still always going to have one-liners. He always makes people laugh. He's charming. People enjoy him for a multitude of reasons. But I'm happy that I was part of the scary ones.
All right, so we have time for a couple more questions. Anybody? I'll go to you next. You guys have one over there.
So, out of all the movies, which one what was your favorite to be in, and what was your favorite to watch looking back?
Yeah, in many ways, the first one was my favorite, just because it was my first major film. It was a crazy experience. But it's also the hardest one to remember, obviously, because I was 6. So I would say my favorite one to make was Cult of Chucky, because I was older, I could appreciate it more. I did like the scenes that I had to do. I had some really fun stuff in there. And it was fun. You know, it was really fun for me. I'm a massive fan of the show Dexter. And I kind of saw some parallels between Andy Barclay and Dexter Morgan. And I respect Michael C. Hall as an actor so much. So I kind of got to like draw from that a little bit with that. So that was very fun for me. Like I'm probably never gonna play a psychopathic killer or a sociopath, as the case would be with Dexter. But I do think there's a darkness to Andy Barclay, and I don't even think we've explored it completely yet. So I enjoyed making that film the most. And then to watch, it's probably the first one. Would be just because it was there's also the largest separation. There's no insecurities looking at myself as a 6-year-old, even though that kid spoke in syllables, you know. It used to bug me when I was a kid, but now it doesn't, so it's fine. You know, like, Mommy, Chucky's gone. Like, everything is like who talks like that? 6-year-olds talk like that, I guess. You know.
I think we have time for one more.
One more over here.
Somebody raise their hand over here. That was you, right?
Hey, wow, it's an honor talking or whatnot. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, when you were a kid and the movie was released, did a lot of people notice you out, or was he's like, oh, that was the kid that played the Chucky movie?
Well, if they didn't, my dad was sure to tell them. The waiter, the lady at the bank, everyone. It's the opposite of my mother, who would never bring it up in a million years. You were just a cute kid. No. But yeah, my dad was very proud. But a little bit, not that much. As I was saying earlier, you change the way you look pretty quick at that age. You know, even from year to year, you really I think I look pretty different in part 2 than I did in part 1. You change a lot of that, so not that much. Was there a second part to it? Was it just that? Did people recognize me? Not that much. And I was thankful for that too. When I was a kid, I got more than enough attention. I was never an attention-starved kid, at all. And through my high school years, I never did these kind of conventions or anything like that. I've gotten very comfortable and used to sitting in front of a room and talking, but I was a very introverted kid in high school, and so I'm glad that it wasn't constantly brought up, Although I went to a very small school from first grade through 8th grade. It was the same group of about 80 kids in a small town in New Jersey. So they knew me before, during, and after. So they never really made that big a deal of it. Plus, at that time, in the early 90s and stuff, kids weren't watching horror movies like they are now. They weren't watching R-rated films. They didn't have the access to it. You had to sneak on the staircase and watch when your parents were watching. It wasn't as accessible as it is now. So those kids never really gave me a hard time. When I went to Hackensack High School now, which is 4 different towns coming together, and it was a bunch of older kids, and they'd all call me Chucky instead of Andy for some reason. My nickname was, yo, Chucky, let me get a cigarette. That kind of thing. But it was all right. It's a give and take,
All right, thanks again, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it. Let's hear it for Alex Vincent and Chucky.
Oh, wait, did you have anything to say? No, I guess not.